On Christmas Day in 1929, in the quiet coastal town of Stradbally, West Waterford, local postman Larry Griffin disappeared after finishing his rounds. The case dominated the newspaper headlines and columns for months, with accusations of Garda corruption, intimidation, and even brutality. Despite the lack of a body, 10 people were arrested and charged with murder, including a local teacher, 2 local Gardaí, the local publican, his wife, and their 2 children. An intensive search for Larry's body went on for months, with local copper mines being dredged and even local graves being secretly dug up under the cover of darkness. The case eventually collapsed when the state witness dramatically withdrew his original statement on the stand. The 10 accused walked free and later even profited from libel against newspapers. Despite the best efforts, Larry Griffin's body was never found. Over 85 years have passed since the popular postman vanished from this beautiful West Waterford village. But a veil of silence still remains.
He would have been, he would have been a maybe pro-British, but pro-Free State anyway. And even during the Civil War here in the local village, like, he was crossing the street one day with one of the Mahars and going across to Kerwin's pub, and there was an ambush. Now, they weren't trying to harm Larry, but as it turned out, he got wounded. He got a part of his ear clipped off with a bullet. To the other man they were trying to deal with, because he was an officer of the Free State Army, and these were some of the rebels who were still at loose, And funny enough, as it turned out, one of the rebels actually turned out to be a work comrade of Larry's afterwards, and a great friend, So
right.
that's the way the Civil War turned out to be, But Larry Griffin himself was very popular in the locality. The Griffins themselves were very popular. The whole Griffin family would be very popular. Even afterwards, Jack Griffin, Larry's son, would be considered one of the most popular men in the village or in the surrounding areas.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about it. But there would have been no animosity towards Larry Griffin or towards the Griffins ever, from that point of view,
I was married to Jack Griffin in 1949, and his only son, Larry's only son, he was in the garage business at the time, and I never knew him before, prior to that, but we got married in 1949, and we came to live with his mother in the house in Kilmacthomas.
And this is Mary here, is it?
Mary,
this picture here?
Mary. She was very good at the time. She was about in her 70s or so at the time, But she was after being through a lot of trouble, and she was really delighted that Jack settled down,
And can you tell me, from being married to Jack and talking to Mary, it was such a traumatic experience to have lost her husband in such a way. How was she? Did Jack ever refer to her? How she coped with it? How did she deal with it?
She was wonderful. She spoke a lot about it. She used to tell me all about it every day. She would speak about it a lot. And I think it was very good for her, because she was getting off her chest, but Jack used to speak much about it at all. No, he didn't want to bring up the subject at all,
Isn't that, especially when Mary herself would talk so much about it, and what way did she feel about it?
Well, she was a very strong woman. No, she was a wonderful woman, and she didn't have she wasn't bitter, and she just, all she ever wanted was to get his body, to bury it. She didn't want anything else from it. She didn't want money, she didn't want anything else. That's all she wanted. And she was hoping and praying that somebody would tell her something about it. And all this thing came up then about the courts and that, and whatever happened anyway, whatever evidence, it all fell through anyhow, and nobody was ever charged. And she had to live with it then for the rest of her life. She never knew where he was. She went here, there and everywhere. Anybody that was ever found anywhere, they tell her about it, and she'd go and she'd have a look to see would it be him, you know. And no, nothing.
She had her hopes like that.
She did, she hoped, she had her hopes.
The whole time.
Yes.
Listen, can we go back to the case itself? Because you were young, how old were you when it happened, when Larry disappeared?
I was 8.
You were only 8,
Yeah.
and can you remember that?
I can remember all the commotion, all the talk about it, you know, I can, yeah. And the newspapers, you know, and get the newspaper every day and to see if there was any trace of the body. And in those days, things like that weren't happening, you see. Nowadays it's different. But the postman would come along then and he might have a bit of news about it, and everybody asking everybody else about it. Nobody seemed to know anything. Yeah.
Take us back again and just tell us a little bit about what happened as well, what the theory was about that night.
Well, you see, in those days, they delivered the post on Christmas Day. And it seems he wasn't somebody who normally took a lot of drink. And of course he went into the houses and they all gave him some drink to take, more than he was able to take, I suppose, poor man. And whatever happened after that, he was supposed to be in the pub in Stradbally, and his wife was waiting at home for him to come back. And Jack was going to a dance that night. There was to be dance inside in Kilmarnock that night. He was only 18. He was waiting. The father was supposed to give him money for the dance when he came home from work. So the word came to the dance hall anyway that Jack's father wasn't after coming home. So a lot of them left and they went to look for him. And it started off from there. And sure, they were looking for him ever since.
Larry's bicycle was found the next morning on a quiet boreen. It's believed it was deliberately placed there to mislead the investigation.
The guards were, it was in the very beginning of the Garda Síochána at the time, like, you know, and they were, I suppose they had different rules and regulations then to what you have now. And these things weren't as well up as what they are now, sort of thing, you know.
It's all different.
Yeah.
A recent book in the case revealed a startling amount of Garda corruption and intimidation, not to mention incompetence.
I remember at the time too, this is 1929. The state was formed, you could say, in 1922-23, 6 years before that. The Garda Síochána was composed of what? Fellas who had been involved in the IRA and fellas who, you know, they just had to fill the numbers because the RIC were gone. So it was highly suspect that, you know, the fellas who were in the Garda Síochána at the time had very little training. They wouldn't have been accomplished for what we know now as Garda Síochána, like, you know. They wouldn't have been trained. They would be just fellas who happened to be there at the time and got a job, and because they had to fill the numbers. And so therefore, like, to say that the Garda Síochána at the time, there wouldn't have been a very slick police force at the time. They were mainly made up of people who had been involved in the struggle for independence, like. But also as well as that too, because a lot of the Garda Síochána time would have been Free State men, then there would be animosity to a certain amount between them and the local population who would have been IRA, like, you know. And that turned out then in the case of the people who were charged with Larry Griffin's missing. Some of them were highly motivated IRA people, others were Free Staters as well. So, like, they had this melting pot of politics stuck in the middle of a simple row, because there's no doubt about it, like the Larry Griffin case all centred around a silly kind of a row, in that it was Christmas Day. Larry Griffin was after working hard all day, after doing the rounds of the post at the time, which, whatever anyone says, was a tough day's work, because he had to start early in the morning, cycle from Kilmacthomas out to Stradbally, deliver all around the area. Every house he went into, he was forced to have a drink. He couldn't, because I know it myself, because when my father was a postman going around, at Christmas time, I used to have to go and look for him because he'd be after falling asleep and I used to have to get so much drink that he wouldn't know where he'd be, and I'd have to finish doing the post for him. So like Larry Griffin had nobody to finish the post from. They were only small children, so he had to try and struggle on all day. He couldn't, you couldn't refuse a drink, like, because the people would be insulted if you wouldn't take a drink and take the half, get your Christmas box, which is the custom even up to very recent times, like. And so, like, by the time the evening came, Larry Griffin really probably wasn't fit to go anywhere, between tiredness, between having drink, between working and the cold and all the rest of it. And it was Christmas Day. So therefore, like, he went into the pub, had a drink. The story is told that he was taking out some money to pay for a drink, and one fella, no, don't pay, you pay, I'll pay. No, the way fella went on the pub, and Larry said, no, I'll pay, and he pulled out and his money fell down on the ground, and one fella put his leg on and played garden, and somebody pushed and somebody else pushed back, and next thing was Larry fell and hit his head, and that was the story that happened. They panicked then in the pub. The whelan said, oh my God, what do we do if a dead man is found in a pub? We lose the licence. Now, okay, it is easy to say to speak in today's terms, but I mean, if they lost the licence at that time, so their whole livelihood was gone. Also in the pub were other people like the schoolmaster. Well, if he lost his job, like, I mean, his livelihood was gone. All the rest of the people, so they had to try and cover up, The guards, there was guards in the pub at the same time. If it was discovered that they were in the pub, the job was gone again. Where were they going to get a job? Head off to England, So, like, it's easy to be judgmental nowadays, but, like, that's the reality behind Ireland at the time was that jobs were hard to get, and these all had good jobs. Like, I mean, they had school teachers, guards, publicans, all these pillars of society, especially the fact that the schoolmaster was charged. That really kind of added cut and thrust to the case. The fact that he was the one person that had the car, like, I mean, that was the only way they could think of that the body would be disposed of then. That they had to have somebody with some means of transport, like, to dispose of the body, and that's why he was suspect so far. But also the guards, according to the guard of files now, they also suspected Cashin in that he was involved. He was still a strong Republican, he was involved in the IRA at the time, or what they called the irregulars at the time. And there's no doubt, but he was he was because his brother had been in Ballykindler, short time before that. I mean, you're only saying 6 years before that, his brother had been interned in Ballykindler, So, like, I mean, he had the history of being involved in the Republican movement, so he was a strong suspect.
With strong Republican connections, Thomas Cashin appears to have been a major influence in the silencing of the 10 accused.
The main weakness of that case was they had no body, and unless they had a body, like, they couldn't prove a murder or anything like that. They dug up the graves in Kilroston. I think they dug up the graves in Newtown as well. There's also a theory that the body was thrown over the cliffs in Stradbally and that it floated out to sea, and that some of the fishermen in Ring saw the body, but never. They just steered away from it. They didn't want to get involved. There's all these kind of theories now being proposed. There was also the theory that the body was buried in the road at Ballyvile Bridge because the council was supposed to be resurfacing the road. But again, that theory hasn't been proven yet either,
Many questions still remain unanswered surrounding the disappearance of Larry Griffin on Christmas Day in 1929. Time passes and generations die away. But is it possible information have been passed on, keeping families in silence, fear, even shame for a crime they played no part in? Are there secret guarded files on the case? Is it better to forget? Is it time to lay the case to rest? The mystery remains unsolved, and it seems that Stradbally is a village that would rather forget this dark chapter.
We had a parish priest at the time, Father Sinnott, And he used to always say to her, don't worry about that at all, he said. He said, all belong to me, lost at sea, he said, and we haven't to grave for anyone. I suppose she was trying to console her, like, you know. She used to be always saying to him, like, he'd be buried up there, you know, in Newtown. So